Jeff, let's dive into this college slate. I don't know. First of all, what's your take? Interested or not? I don't think there's a few games, but overall, I'm not very. It's not a Saturday night.
I think for like people that are like just watching games, they're probably not as excited. Look, I'm always excited. I always think back to like the middle of July where there's nothing going on. You know, I can bet on any game. I think from a betting standpoint, there's some interesting games. But yeah, I mean, you have Tennessee Tennessee and
Oklahoma.
Yeah, and you have Michigan, USC. You have Utah, Oklahoma State. There's some all right matchups out there.
Yeah.
Miami, Florida. You know,
let's get your takes right out the gate to start the slate off tonight. Two top 25 teams: Nebraska, Illinois. Nebraska minus 7.5. Would you go under on that one? 42.5. Would you go under on this game?
That's a great call by you. I had this number around 42, 43. Look, these two defenses are very good. Illinois didn't look great last year defensively. They look a lot better. Luke Altmaier's a good quarterback. That said, this is a great defense. Nebraska's not allowed more than 18 points in any game. Remember, they held Colorado to 10, right? That's a really good offense, Colorado. Held them to 10. I'm not sure Dylan Raiola has seen a defense quite like this. Two teams that I think are going to punt a lot in this game, just kind of play with their food, if you will. I thought it was first to 20 wins. I think all these other Friday games could probably be high scoring. This one I thought was a 20-17, 17-13 type of game. Should be a tough watch.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Friday night game. I wish they would say Friday night for high school, man. I just think it's a travesty for those kids. NC State Clemson ACC game. I think it's a very interesting one. NC State usually, I've been saying, usually got a few draftable D linemen. This year, I don't see one. They might have one. Clemson waxes Appalachian last week like they're supposed to. Clemson minus 18.5, total 44.5 over under. I'm kind of confused. I think the bettors think that this is the Clemson of old, and I'm not sold that it is. I think this is a much closer game than 18.5.
I just want to throw this out there. If you're a gambler, Appalachian State is one of the worst defensive teams in the country. They are horrific. I mean, they give up 66, as you said last week. Last night, they gave up 48 to South Alabama. That's a bad defensive team there. That said, NC State, I mean, what do we say about this team? I mean, they were supposed to be, I think, a top 20 type team. You know, they had Grayson McCall coming in. And what are they? They're 1-2. They don't have their quarterback. Grayson McCall is injured now. I don't think Clemson should be. Look, I can't lay 14 or more with them. I just can't. They're not an offense that I'm running to lay big numbers with. NC State, you got to figure they've got to have some sort of heart at some point. They still have a decent defense. I don't think they're this bad. That said, they don't have Grayson McCall. I'm not running to bet them. Bettors have taken NC State, though. This number was like 20-21. It's now down to 18.5. I think anything above 17, I'd probably have interest in the Wolfpack. You know, I could see like a 31, 20 type of game, something like that. I would have hoped that NC State can hang around in this kind of game.
Yeah. Go ahead,
how bad do you expect UCLA to get crushed by LSU this weekend?
They are really bad. I mean, you got to figure. I mean, Indiana didn't exactly have an easy trip out there. You go from Bloomington out to the West Coast. That's something that program hasn't really ever done. And what did UCLA do? Nothing. Ethan Garbers is a bad quarterback. Can't move the ball. Their defense, I mean, they have nothing there, just completely blown out. That's a bad program. I think they're looking forward to basketball season. Only had 238 yards in that game. And LSU is a much better team than Indiana. Give Indiana credit, though. They're a team that's going to be they're going to be good in a year or two. They have a really good coach there.
Yeah, I don't know how good LSU is, though. I mean, I think they're going to beat UCLA handily, but I don't even know if they're that much better than Indiana. I like Indiana. I know their head coach very well, good offensive guy. Minded guy. I think they're going to have that's going to be Nebraska's biggest after tonight. I think that'll be Nebraska's only downfall from keeping them 7-0.
Well, I will say, I mean, on every game before the number comes out, I make the number what I would make it if I was a bookmaker, and I made this number 21 with LSU. They're 22.5. So to me, there's not a ton of value there. I think that's to me how I gamble. If I make a number, let's say 6, and the number's 11, then I'm gonna bet accordingly. So I made this number about what it is. So UCLA, LSU didn't have any betting value to me.
Let me ask you this real quick. Are there any upsets that's kind of, possible upsets you see this weekend? One game specifically, I know you guys are going to call me biased, but the Bowling Green, Texas A&M is one that I'm just going to keep my eye on it because they played Penn State. We remember very close. It was lost by a touchdown. You see that being a potential upset?
I will say, I don't know about upset, but I think that was too many points to me. I mean, Bowling Green, as you alluded to, I had the over in that game against Penn State. I was enjoying what happened because the game went over the total because of Bowling Green's ability to score. They have a good quarterback. They're a team that in the MAC, I think, can really contend. Texas A&M's tough. We know it's tough to play at Kyle Field. They have a good quarterback there.
100-degree weather, 100 degrees.
Yeah. But I want to say they can hang around. I'll say that there's more likely of an upset elsewhere. Like for me, I look at like Navy. I think they could upset Memphis. Memphis coming off a big win against Florida State. Now you got to go on the road. You got to play a team in the Naval Academy who's still top 3 rushing team in the country, better defensively, right? They have a new coach. Bettors have been all over Navy in this game. Numbers come down a couple of points. The Naval Academy knew they're going to sit on the ball. You're only going to have so many possessions in that game. I could see Navy kind of hanging in that game, keeping it close. Remember last year they played. This game was 28-24 Memphis. So Navy hung around, and that was a pretty good Memphis team last year. Something tells me maybe they can hang around and be in that game late against Memphis.
Yeah, let me ask you this. There's a couple interesting ones. Upset alert. Georgia Tech, Louisville. I think Coach Brom's the top notch. I think Coach Brom's the top 5-6 coach in America. I think this is a trap game, though. Georgia Tech has shown that they can play well, then they have a letdown, then they can play well. This is the inconsistencies of a Georgia Tech trying to figure out how to win on a consistent basis. Is Louisville in trouble at all? Minus 10.5 Louisville, over under 57.5 though.
By the way, someone saying that wasn't an upset over Florida State. It absolutely was. They were a big underdog, Memphis, in that one. As far as Louisville, look, I picked Louisville weirdly enough before the season to win the ACC. I'm actually feeling pretty good about that. I think Louisville's really good. I like Brom like you do. I think defensively they're really solid. I think we'll learn a lot about them in this game. I feel like against Georgia Tech, if you can stop the run, you're going to do a decent job against them. Syracuse was much better against the run and was able to beat them. I feel like Georgia Tech's kind of a team that we thought was really good because they beat Florida State, and then we found out Florida State's not really good, and then it's like, oh, okay, what have you really done? Well, we beat Georgia State and VMI, the Virginia Military Institute. Big deal. They did lose the only step-up game they had on the road at Cuse. This number is, 10? I think that tells you all you need to know. I would be on Louisville in this matchup. I've said before, I'll say it again, Louisville's really good. I think their quarterback is perfect for that system. Tyler Shuck, he was at Texas Tech and Oregon. They put up 610 on the ground and through the air against Jacksonville State, who was the best defense in Conference USA last year. So I'm happy with Louisville. I think they beat up Georgia Tech here. I think Georgia Tech comes back to earth finally.
You think Texas Tech, Arizona State game is worth betting? Arizona State on the opportunity to go 4-0. Texas Tech scores a lot, but they don't stop anyone. Arizona State similar. Where are you at with that game?
Well, last week I had Texas Tech and North Texas over. Texas Tech went over themselves in that game, I think. I think they had 66. They're a really good offense still. It doesn't matter who's there. They can move the football. I don't want to be boring here, but I noticed that the weather forecast in Lubbock looks very windy. And look, people overrate weather a lot. To me, rain doesn't matter to me. I don't think it affects totals. Wind does. The wind looks like very gusty in this game. I want to say in the 30s as far as miles per hour gusts. I think the under has value. I think a lot of people just assume both these teams will score 30 points. I can't back Texas Tech. I don't know if they have much of a home field advantage. Their defense, as you alluded to, is bad, and they're dealing with certain injuries as well. Arizona State's tough. I did not expect them under Kenny Dillingham to be 3-0. They have an opportunity to go 4-0. And JB, as you know, these games matter because we know Arizona State's probably not going to win the Big 12. every game like this is important because eventually bowl season is going to come and their schedule is going to get harder. Got to have these kind of like flip games.
Hey, did you guys know something about this new Big 12 or whatever? Did you know that there's been some games played already, even though they're in the conference, that don't count for conference games? Did you guys know that? Did anybody in the chat know that? Did anybody in here know that? So
what do you mean?
Let me explain. So I believe I want to say Arizona State, whoever they played a couple weeks ago.
They played Texas State, Mississippi State, and Wyoming.
Okay, then they're not in that. They're one of the teams. Here, let me explain it because I don't know off the top what teams they were, but they're Big 12 teams that are on the schedule that are conference teams, but they don't count versus conference losses or wins this year because they didn't sign the contract. They didn't sign the contract until after. I think Arizona Kansas State was one of them.
Yeah, that was last week.
That game didn't count in the win-loss column as far as the conference.
I see what you're saying.
Well,
they're in the conference, but they signed the contract
too
after.
late. So now it won't count till next year, next season.
Well, in terms of conference games, Arizona State's now in their conference schedule. And look, they need this game because their schedule.
Utah Baylor too didn't count.
Yeah, their schedule coming up is very tough. I think their only really winnable game is probably Cincinnati. So if Arizona State, and again, maybe they could win a game or two, but they got to keep, they didn't win games like this. I think they're a good underdog here. I like them. I would take them +3. I don't think Texas Tech should be a favorite to anyone in this conference.
Let's dive into the big games. There's some blue bloods on the schedule. Not blue bloods. They're now blue bloods nowadays, I guess. Utah, Oklahoma State. It's Oklahoma State -2.5. It's 52.5 over under in Stillwater. We don't know about Utah's QB situation. -2.5 is very interesting. I could see that being a field goal game. I just don't know how good Utah's quarterback is. I don't know how good this Utah team is. Oklahoma State to me is up and down. Where are you at with that one?
I think this is if Cameron Rising plays, I think this is a back and forth over game. I mentioned Oklahoma State was a team I wanted to bet over the total. They have a really good offense per usual. Defense isn't great. I think Cameron Rising is going to play. That said, his status is very important. I'm not a big fan of the Wilson kid, the Mormon MILF Hunter's brother, a quarterback. Not a big fan of his. I need Cameron Rising in this game. And if he plays, this is a great game. And I'm going to lean Utah because they have a better defense. Mike Gundy does not have a prototypical Oklahoma State defense. There's not a big like Emmanuel Ugba type player up front on the defensive line. The secondary is poor. I like Utah State as long as Rising plays. I think he will. So I lean Utah.
And then, Smitty, I don't know. The Tennessee-Oklahoma game is the one everyone wants to talk about. I don't believe this Oklahoma team is that good. Tennessee's not played anyone of significance, in my opinion. Where are you at with this one? -6.5. Tennessee's getting over under 56.5.
I'm leaning on Oklahoma here. I think at home, I don't love them on offense, but I think they're still very good. They still have talent. And look, defensively, they're not terrible. I think they have the ability to get stops. You're right. They haven't played anybody really. We'll give Houston some credit. They hung around against Oklahoma, but Tennessee has played no one. Coach, you got to give them credit, though. They scored 68 last week in 3 quarters.
They had 60 in half.
That's pretty impressive, no matter who you play.
That's why I lead off the show all this week about mediocrity is the new excellence. I think college football is just so bad. Everyone thinks they're great. I think it's bad product.
Right I mean, the MAC, you've got to be really, that's a pathetic conference. The MAC, Kent State, no, I'm kidding. But no, Kent State's real bad. I mean,
here's that interesting, I got an interesting take on this. We got you for about 10 minutes. Let me ask you, people don't realize, or they do know, but I don't know if people look at it. I broke down last week's game with the Niners, Minnesota on our show on Sunday, and I said, be careful because
we like Minnesota.
Sam Darnold went and played against 49ers' #1 defense every day in practice last year when he was the backup. He knows that defense. And what happened? He did a pretty damn good job and hit them big, and they won the game. Very similar situation with this Oklahoma-Tennessee game. Josh Heupel is an Oklahoma alum. He won a natty there. Heisman. You gotta look, he has some personal vendetta. Even though he loves his alma mater, you always want to beat your alma mater if you're coaching against them. On the other side, I've seen it go the other way too. Oklahoma's using that same juice in the locker room and saying, this motherfucker went here. Fuck this. Woo, 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 woo. It can go either way, Smitty. If you and I both know we've gone back and we've got our ass whooped, we've also gone back and won the game. That's a storyline you just want to have to make sure you follow, maybe.
One of the concerns I see coming out of Oklahoma from their side is the offensive line struggling. That's concerning to me. I don't want teams that have poor offensive and defensive line. So it's a tough game. I think the line's probably correct. I don't know if there's a ton of value on it to me. I, again, still lean Oklahoma at home. I think the game's probably high scoring and close. I'll lean on the Sooners, but I'm not running to bet it. It won't be a game I'm on.
Now, here's two games, and we got to get to the game of the everyone's talking about. K-State, BYU. Good friend of mine, Kalani Satake, the head coach of BYU. K-State's -7. It's in Provo. Over under 48.5. 2 undefeateds in the Big 12. This is a big game here. K-State, BYU. I think BYU can. They're tough at home. It's a 65-degree weather game. Perfect Utah. It screams upset to me. I'm just telling you. And I also have another upset alert I want to give you and see what you think. But this one right here screams upset to me, Jeff.
Yeah, I thought that last week, and Arizona just fell apart. I don't know what happened to them. I mean, that offense looks lost. K-State just kind of lulls you to sleep. They're well coached. They have a good quarterback. The defense is better than I thought it was. And they just find ways to win games and end up doing it handily. They probably should have lost to Tulane, ended up beating them by 7. They get a couple of days off here extra. BYU, I still don't know what they have at quarterback with Retzlaff. They've played no one. I will say, I think both these defenses are better than we think. They really shut down SMU. That said, SMU has quarterback problems. They don't know who their quarterback is. This is a late night game. It's, I think, the latest game on a card. I could see why you could assume this would be an upset special. Again, I don't mean to be boring, but to me, it's about whether the game, to me, has betting value. I thought the number was about correct here. I think the under has value. I think it's probably first to 24 wins. I think both these defenses are a little undervalued. So I'm going to lean on that, and I'm going to lean on being able to both shut down the run. If you can shut down the run against K-State with that quarterback, you're going to have some success because he is not necessarily an accomplished thrower for Avery Johnson. So I'm going to lean on the under. I think it's the first to 24 wins. I could see it 24-17, 27-17, something like that.
All right, Smitty, ask about the game that you all want to know about.
The last one, the big house, USC, Michigan. USC is going to the big house, 2 ranked opponents. We know Michigan is not looking like the same team as last year, but they still got that defense. A lot of, NFL guys still up on that up front. What's your thoughts on this game, man? Who you got? What's the betting odds? What's the thoughts going into this game?
Actually, I like the I'll tell you who will win, and I'll tell you about the total. I personally bet the under in this game, 44. I think this is an ugly game. Old school, ugly Big Ten game, similar to the way like Iowa games look a lot of the time. I think Miller Moss will struggle on the road here at Michigan. I think a lot of people just assume this will happen like the Texas game. Michigan is good defensively, and Miller Moss is not Quinn Ewers, right? He's a good quarterback. He ain't Quinn Ewers. He ain't Caleb Williams. He's going to struggle on the road here. And Michigan's quarterback situation is bad. They don't know who the quarterback is. It really doesn't matter to me anyway. I don't know if Cortland Loveland's going to play. He's probably their biggest threat on offense from a receiver tight end standpoint. I think this game, again, first to 17 wins, ugly game. You look at that game against Texas, it was 31-12. I would have went under this number. I think this is like 24-13, 21-10. I think USC probably wins and covers. I just don't think Michigan can score much. But they're a great defense, and I think they can keep this game close, per se. I bet the under 44.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. All right, the last one before I give you a possible upset alert. Baylor, Colorado. Everybody wants to know about this game. In Colorado, Matt said it's supposed to be raining. Where are you at with this game? Is Baylor talented enough on the perimeter is my concern. And are they good enough at QB? They'll be decent on defense. Where are you at with this one?
Well, I think that's the big question and why I don't want to run and bet this game is because I will admit I had Colorado State last week. I thought 8-9 was too many points. I thought Nicolosi would be a guy that could duel with Shedeur Sanders. I was wrong. He couldn't. He was poor. And I don't know if Sawyer Robertson can either. That said, Baylor has two good quarterbacks. I don't know if they have one great quarterback. DeQuan Finn, who was also the quarterback there, was very good at Toledo. He hasn't looked like he can kind of up and go play in the Big 12. So I want to believe that Baylor can score with Colorado. At the end of the day, I don't know if they can. They looked really bad against Utah. I'm not saying Utah's Colorado, but they couldn't move the ball in that game. I want to believe they can hang around, but I think this is probably another win for Colorado. I think this is a game they probably have to have. Their schedule gets a lot tougher coming up. I'm not generally willing to say Colorado generally isn't good against most teams, and they're not better than most teams, but I think they should be a favorite here. They are at home, and I think they surely have the better offense in this game. It's going to be, can they get some stops and look like they did last week? It seemed like Colorado, for the first time, and I have to say this, I was impressed by this. It seemed like they finally said, you know what? Let's put a full game together here. Let's stop screwing around. Let's just play our game. I thought they looked very good. I don't know. I will say, I don't know if that was just Nicolosi sucks.
Colorado State's a bad football program. I'm just going to say that.
Hindsight's 2020. We're not gonna say all that shit now. Like Jeff said, and shout out to Jeff for admitting it. He had Colorado State covering. That's still a rivalry. That's a big rival game. We went down to the wire last year. Give Colorado their credit. I don't give a fuck.
But I want to say, I'm one of the only people. Okay, if I don't hate the hate, I just tell you the truth. The truth is that Colorado. But the truth about Colorado is, I'm saying what's happened. They have not looked good on defense. Their offensive line's not been good. They can't run the football. That's just the truth. That's not a conjecture. That said, they look really good last week. We'll see if it continues. They should win this game. This is a game they have to have.
I disagree. I think they looked horrible against a worse team. That's all I'm saying.
About to go 3-1, y'all. 3-1.
Hey, Jeff, here's my takeaway before you get out of here. Before I ask you something.
I got about 10 minutes if you want me, but it's up to you.
I want you for 11. Fuck it.
Let me ask you something real quick. I think Vanderbilt is going to cover the number at Missouri. That's the take. That's funny. That's funny you bring that up. By the way, I will say, Colorado, if they have any hope and want to get to a bowl game, you have to win this game tomorrow. Their schedule is brutal coming up. They probably only have one game they'll be a favorite, and that's against Cincinnati. That said, I'm glad you mentioned Vanderbilt because this is surely the best team that Clark Lea has had. Yes. Diego Pavia is a good quarterback, and I don't trust Missouri. I really don't. I think their secondary is bad. They give up a lot of big plays, and if Castellanos doesn't throw some bad throws last week and give up a couple of interceptions, they probably beat Boston College. I don't know if they'll upset Missouri, but that seemed like a lot of points to me. I think Vandy's much better than we remember. I agree with you at that level. Yeah, 20 points is seems like it's interesting to me, Smitty. I'm gonna roll with the coverage upset, not the upset to win the game. But I wouldn't be shocked if it's a close game. I wouldn't.